Hi, everyone. So in this video here, I'm going to introduce you to our next and final unit, which is about AI, which is a little different from some of the things we've been doing, but we're still going to pick up on some of the skills that we've been talking about with some of our previous projects. So for our week 4 schedule of assignments, this is a change from what was a slight change from what you'd seen before. When you look onto Blackboard, the schedules will all be correct, but if for some reason you downloaded the previous schedule and you're going by that, make sure that you look at the schedules that I have posted, because the ones that are posted on Blackboard will be correct. So, we knew all of this working on final draft number 2. Final draft number 2 is going to be due on Thursday, the 27th by 7 a.m. And then very quickly, we need to get into the next unit. So this is the video that you need to be watching for the AI unit video intro. There are going to be quiz questions in this that you'll need to answer. Here you've got, I say, ask ChatGPT how it works. And I'm not going to check up on this, but I want you to just go ahead and log on to ChatGPT and ask it how it works. This will be very useful for you in terms of the assignments that we have coming up next week that I'll talk about it. So you can just get on ChatGPT, ask how it works, and play around, do anything else you want to do with ChatGPT to play around with it and see how it operates. That'll help you out. Again, I'm not requiring it, and I mean, I want you to do it, but I'm not going to check up on you, but it will definitely be useful in terms of the next assignment. And in fact, you can potentially use some of the information that you get from ChatGPT in your next project. Then you'll need to watch on this episode on John Oliver. It's a show called John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. He has a whole episode. It's about a half-hour episode about AI. He kind of explains what it is. He's funny. Well, at least I think he's funny. You might not think he's as funny. But he's somebody who's going to talk about the nature of AI, kind of explain it, explain some of the issues, and is, again, somewhat entertaining about all that. Then you'll need to read How to Become an Expert on AI and How Does ChatGPT Really Work. Those are both available in the July 27th folder, so you'll see those, and I'll look at those in just a second. For the 28th, you'll need to read 35 Ways Real People Are Using AI Right Now. ChatGPT is already changing how I do my job. Drinking with ChatGPT, workers wonder, will this take my job? And it's not the end of work, it's the end of boring work. So if nothing else, you can kind of see that where we're going with AI, thinking about how it is going to change how people work, how what kind of jobs we do, how we do our jobs. And so all of these readings, they aren't necessarily very long, are going to talk about that. Over here, we're just kind of getting an introduction to what AI actually is. In all of these readings, we're going to be talking about what is it that, how is it that it's going to be impacting people's jobs, right? So it's a number of articles, but they aren't necessarily too long, and so go ahead and read those. And then we've got an AI discussion board that you'll need to complete by Friday at midnight. Then if we go on to week 5 and beyond, which is this is our last week, right? So week 5 and then these last 2 days, you've got an AI dialogue assignment due on Monday. And so I just want you to be aware of that there is this assignment due. That's the only thing you have on Monday is to work on that. And basically I've got the instructions for this, but basically what it is you're going to be explaining to somebody how AI works, right? And it's a dialogue assignment because you're going to have to somebody on the other side saying, wait, what about this? But I've got the explanation for that. We have that for Monday. Then we'll start working on project number 3, outline, rough draft, final draft, just like we've been doing before, and then we'll have a final exam on the 8th. So I just want to take you through some of those things. You can see in Blackboard, I got the week 4 schedule. Again, this is going to be correct up here. You've got the assignments. Oh, some are missing off there, but they're in the other place. But you've got these assignments there. These are actually incorrect because I'm still making this video. But you've got all those, and so you'll be able to, after I get off this video, I'm going to correct it so that this matches what you actually see on the schedule. So that's what we have in terms of the assignments. And then I want to kind of think back. I'm going to go back over here. I want to think back to the about what it is we're talking about in terms of AI. So the when you ask ChatGPT how it works, and then you read How to Become an Expert in AI, How Does ChatGPT Really Work, and watch the John Oliver AI episode, you'll get a sense about what it is that what AI actually does, how it does what it does. And I'm going to tell you some things, but it's important that you look at it so that you really understand it, because again, if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to do the dialogue assignment that's coming up on Monday. One of the things that's really important to keep in mind about what AI does is it doesn't know anything. It doesn't know how to speak the language. It doesn't, as far as we know, it doesn't really understand anything. There is this question about whether it actually does, but really, mostly we think that it doesn't, because all it does is it says, look, I have looked at a lot of language that has been written out there. They train it on all the language that's been written out on the internet, right? Anything that's ever been written anywhere. It scans all of that and it says, what is the most likely word to come after the word that I just said, right? And it gets rather complicated because it depends on some level what topic you're going to be talking about. But what it does, it just says, look, somebody said, we've said this word. Well, what's the next most likely word? And what's the next most likely word? And what's the next most likely word? And it goes through and does that. And so it is really all about probability, right? That is thinking what is the most likely to happen. And that's how it's able to create these things that sound like language. Well, they are language, but sound like human language, right? Sound like they were created by a human. Because as human beings, the language that we use is going to have a particular format. It unfolds in a particular way, right? It is more likely after we use the word the, we have to have a noun. Well, what noun is that? And then after that, we're probably going to have a verb. And given what you're talking about, what is the most likely noun? What kind of nouns and verbs go together? All those kinds of things that that we have, as probability, and that's something that the AI can figure out. And so it's kind of important to realize that that's what it's doing. To keep in mind that it's just able to generate, that is, create this language because it's understanding in general, not understanding, but it's predicting in general what the next word is probably going to be. You're familiar with this kind of system if you're on texting and you've got predictive text, right? You're texting something and it says, maybe you want to use this word. And the reason that your phone is able to do that is your phone is saying, a lot of people, when they use this word, they then usually want to use this word or this phrase, or I'll give you a whole word or phrase, because the phone program, your text program, has been listening into, right, gathering information from all the text messages that anybody ever sends. And then it says, most people, after they do this, probably want to do this. You want to use this word? And again, it's not necessarily always accurate, but sometimes it is fairly accurate. And so it's able to sort that out. I mean, a similar kind of a thing. I don't know if you use Gmail. Actually, my Outlook does this as well. It will suggest email responses. So I get an email and something will pop up at the bottom and says, maybe you want to respond in this way, right? Because what is done is it said, when emails get sent that have this information, people have a tendency to respond in this way. And they say, here's some choices. You want to respond using this? And again, sometimes it can be fairly accurate. Not always, but it's pretty good in some ways. And so what something like ChatGPT is doing is something very similar. It's saying, what do people usually sound like? What kinds of responses do they use in these kinds of situations? If they're talking about this subject, what words do they use, and how do these words follow one after the other? So I just want you to understand that, and again, you don't have to completely understand that right now, because we've got you can ask ChatGPT and it'll explain it to you, and you can play around with ChatGPT and get it to explain to you in different ways. So if you don't understand it, say, can you explain it to it differently? Can you explain it to me in like you would in a children's storybook or something like that? And it can do that because it knows children's storybooks usually unfold in certain ways. You can ask it, can you describe how you work in a poem? Because it has looked at a lot of poems and says, well, poems usually unfold in this way, so let me do that. And so you can play around with it and see what kind of answers you get to help you really understand how ChatGPT really operates. But again, these two short readings will talk about that as well. So between all those things, you'll begin to understand some of that. And then once you understand some of that, then we can begin to, on Friday, look at some readings about how ChatGPT actually will change the way in which we work. And I think it's an important thing to kind of keep in mind because you're going to school potentially to be able to, one of the reasons is potentially be able to get better jobs. We might want to think about, are these jobs going to be here? How are these jobs going to be different? What's going to be happening with that? And so I want you to begin to explore some of those kinds of issues. By the way, also what we're doing here is going to be, of course, a little bit different from what we were doing with Project 1 and 2, which were much more personal kinds of essays, getting you to think about your experiences that you've had. But in some ways, they're very similar. You're still going to have a thesis. You're still going to have to stick to that thesis throughout. You are still going to have to use other sources where you have a lot more sources here, right? And so you really have to, even if I don't check up on you, you have to read all these sources because you are going to have to use them when you're going to write this this assignment. So you're still going to have to use sources. You're still going to have to divide things up into paragraphs. So all of those kinds of skills that we've been talking about already, you're still going to have to apply them to something that is going to be maybe a bit more academic, a bit less personal than the kinds of things we've been looking at. But I just wanted to go ahead and give you this video as a heads up as to what we're going to be talking about, things to keep in mind as we're moving forward. So you can go ahead and start working on those assignments for our final unit for the class.